Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host who is passionate about the ever-evolving world of digital marketing, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan. Welcome to episode 328 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with Jamie King from Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. Thank you very much for listening. You might be listening on the Sports Geek website, sportsgeekhq.com, or you might be listening on your favourite podcast platform. Mine is Pocket Cast. You should know that by now. I've mentioned it nearly 300 times. But it is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere you should find a good podcast. You should find Sports Geek. Over 200 hours of interviews with sports business executives. I'm very thankful for them, like Jamie King that I'm speaking with today, to give up their time for you. As always, you can contact me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com, or on socials at Sean Callanan on most platforms. Today's guest is Jamie King, who I met when I was working with him when he was at the NFL UK, and now he is heading up marketing for Nottingham Forest FC, newly promoted into the Premier League. So it's really interesting chat to him to talk about his history working with NFL UK and how he got into the world of digital, but now stepping up with Nottingham Forest as they've entered into the Premier League. Here is my chat with Jamie King. Very happy to welcome a mate of mine, lucky enough to work with him for a small amount of time. Jamie King, Marketing Director now at Nottingham Forest FC. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, Sean, great to be on. Thanks for asking me, and good to catch up.
Yeah, definitely. Like, first thing I want to do is, before I sort of get to where we cross paths, how did you get your start in the world of sport?
Yeah, so kind of going all the way back, I suppose, to going into university. I actually wanted to go into radio production. That was what I wanted to do. I did a media production degree, and producing radio, talking on the radio was what I wanted to do. Actually, more interested when I got into the university years in music radio. Sport's always been one of my loves, but music kind of took over. I did that for a few years, ended up sort of finding myself in sports talk radio, which kind of refound my love of sport again in terms of wanting to work in that industry. I started producing a few shows. I then started getting excited and realized actually this piece of audio, which might sound great live now, would actually sound much better as a digital clip. Started experimenting with podcasts, started basically building digital brands for radio, traditional radio programs.
So that early time when radio was doing radio and then not really knowing what podcast was and how it could be cut up. I know that space. That's how my podcast started. It was taking my two radio segs, stitching them together and saying, here's a podcast, everybody.
Exactly. And, for me, I think I was 23 when I was producing like national radio, and to tell former footballer Ian Wright and a presenter, right, guys, you're going to stay behind for 10 minutes and we're going to record this just for the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean just for the podcast? So we're going to put the radio show, but we're going to do an intro just for the people that are downloading the podcast. Let's make them feel special. Let's build out our podcast following a completely different audience that are engaging this in a different way. They're not driving home from a footy match. They are probably listening to their commute on a Monday. So let's think about who they are. And that got really exciting. And then, the podcast world it was exploding at that time. And that, along with kind of building up that digital brand, and the show I was producing at the time was a football phone-in, really kind of traditional old school show that's been part of the BBC for a very, very long time. And it was all about fans' opinions and fans' voices. And we were like, well, this lives on social. This is what's happening on Twitter, 365, 24 hours a day. So we knew we had to build the brand on then, and then it kind of went from there.
Were you, as a radio producer, starting to figure out the different social channels that were driving tune in, driving people to call, but then also to have that, like you said, putting it on in the car, going for a run, doing that catch up, and you were starting to play around with the different platforms?
Yeah, for me, the kind of message that I would always try and convince people who are very used to in the UK for radio, we have radar figures, which a lot of these sort of radio and barb, they're very hard to really move the dial on. So for me, I was like, well, if someone's watching a 30-second clip on Facebook, back then when they used to like 30-second clips, or a 20-second clip on Twitter, what difference is that whether they're listening to it and engaging with it on social, or if they're listening to it live on the radio and on podcast? So I tried to almost ask them to think about it as a kind of multi-platform look, and almost accumulate everything that comes together across social, across digital, everything. That is people that are listening to our content. Doesn't matter where they listen to it. Our idea is how we chop it up and put it in different areas. So that was a super interesting challenge for me, and I kind of just found myself doing that, and realizing I was producing radio shows and getting more excited about, right, let's clip that and let's put that over this photo and let's put that out into the world in an hour, and I can't wait to see how that goes. And that was what was fueling my passion. So it's kind of, as these things are, they always come through networking. But my boss at the time was good friends with a lady called Maria Giganti at the NFL, who was VP of events, who's now at the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got introduced. She was like, "Oh, the NFL are actually looking for someone in the UK to come and do social." This was the time where I was just actually getting into the NFL. I sort of found my love through the Kaepernick years of the 49ers and just how good what they were to watch. It was about 2 years after that, I think, that I came in, and I came to the NFL, was the first person in the UK to kind of be dedicated to social, working closely with a guy we know, Eric Stark, very very closely, who is based out in LA, and it kind of just grew the team from there, really, into a more of a digital content team that spun across influencers, content, social, and kind of broadly digital, with the goal of building the fan base in the UK that was big enough to one day be franchise ready, but kind of in the more short term, make sure we're selling out the multiple games that we have in London. And then I was there for 7 years.
So I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you there, because 7 years is a long time in social, and a long time in in the phases of what it was at NFL UK. Those early days. Like, the question I wanted to know is, and we're doing similar stuff in Australia, and I feel like it's, we're a little bit behind as far as the advanced stuff that's been done in the UK. What were some of those things you were looking to? Like you said, you became a 49ers fan because you started following, Colin Kaepernick and those great teams. Like, what were some of the things you were doing from a social point of view to say, who is a NFL fan in the UK? Who's crazy enough to stay up that late at night? Like, because it is promoting a foreign sport in a foreign in a foreign country. What were some of the challenges, but also the opportunities, sort of getting into, the NFL, but then having all those assets, but making sure you're still talking to UK fans, and so they understand the sport. So, what were some of the challenges early on?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that straight away was the NFL as a niche sport in the UK, and not a traditional British sport. We knew we had a really engaged community of fans, and NFL fans across the world are super engaged communities, and they can be big and small depending on what market you're in. At the time, it was a relatively small but really, really engaged fan base that would stay up until 1-2 a.m. And watch their favorite team. They would pay $100 for a 4-game pass just to be able to watch every single minute they possibly can. So while we had this really committed fan base, we knew to build and to grow, we had to grow that fan base quite a lot. So we had to find ways to expand, which was really, really hard balance to try and find, because the rules of the game are not easy to understand. If you can't just turn on an NFL game and watch it if you don't know the rules. So the first thing for us was education. People need to know how to watch the game and how to follow a game. They need to not question why there's 300 guys on the field and there's an ad break every 30 seconds. All of the things that we were challenged with every single day. Of course, that means, for lack of a better term, watering down the sport and simplifying it, which then would frustrate your really committed fans that are like, well, why are you trying to dumb down? And my argument was always, across social and digital, there are no barriers, there are no boundaries. There is so much incredible content, as we know, being created out of the US for an NFL fan. There is no reason why every UK fan, and they do, consume all of that content. Let our content be for new and emerging fans in the UK for the NFL. So if you want to pick up the sport, you come to our channels, and we're almost like a helping hand to get you through the sport. And that was our approach pretty early on, and building that engaged fan base and finding different ways to reach in different audiences and different sports.
I think that balance piece is a good one, because, you are bringing the fans along, but then when you have to, like I said, water it down or over-explain it, the super avids that love you and love the stuff that you do when you do unique stuff for your market, like, but I want everyone to be across. It's like, well, we're trying to get more people. So you're still going to do the explainer, those kind of things. You also had some terrific opportunities having games, in market, and the London games, one becomes, from one game to multiple games. I had Steve Ziff when he was at the Jags way back in episode 103 talking about what the Jags were doing and how it was such an important market and how much they were doing. What's it like? What's it like around London when the NFL comes to town, and then also what's it like working in NFL UK when the spotlight is on London?
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible week. I've been lucky enough to go to a lot of Super Bowls, and it does. We always say it's like our Super Bowl week. It really is. As soon as those teams arrive, it is full on. Where we need cameras at the airport, getting them when they arrive. We need to follow every single step. Fans cannot get enough of this. And you look at the engagement across the season. You have the October spike is bigger than this, as big as the Super Bowl spike because of the in-market relevancy. Everyone's in town. All of your colleagues from the US, they all like to get a nice trip over to London. It's a good excuse to get over there, and it's great to obviously catch up with them. So, a bit like a Super Bowl week, as well as loads of activity going on, you suddenly have everyone in town wanting to do meetings, wanting to do breakfast, and it really is full on. But the buzz around the city is incredible. From NFL jerseys every single place that you go. You get up first thing in the morning, you get on the tube, you're guaranteed to see an NFL jersey on that Sunday morning somewhere. And then you really start to realize, you really start to put faces to the fans that you're building. And you see, one of the things I was really, really proud of was when I first joined the NFL, I think that it was a very white male, older, aging fan base. But one of our key focuses was, how do we make this more youthful? How do we make it more diverse? How do we get more women involved? And then you actually start looking at the makeup of fans in the stadium, and you really start to see that youth coming through, the different diverse fans, and a lot of women now going, which was amazing to see.
And it must be also amazing around the London games. So, you're a digital guy, you love doing all the digital assets and the content and reaching the fans, but to actually have live site and activations. And like I said, see the fans, see and feel and touch the NFL, whether it's, a big store and I'm sure the UK will be like Australia. There'll be every jersey under the sun Like they're not just, they're not just the certain fans, and like everyone has a different, and everyone wants to show it with pride. That piece like sort of locks in that digital fan. They get to feel and see, those activations and the live sites that you do around those London games must be something that sort of does lock people in.
Yeah, and I think something that I was thinking about this the other day, actually, when I first joined our kind of digital app that used to be the I suppose your pass to everything that you wanted to do. We were way ahead of the curve, and I can't take credit for this. Actually, Charlotte, who you work closely with in Australia now, she can take a lot of credit for this. But you would go and do different activities, as we'd have tailgate experiences where you do like a quarterback challenge, or you do a 40-yard dash. You'd then scan, this was like 2015, you'd scan a QR code and you would collect a badge that would then sit inside your app, and you have to collect these digital collectibles, which, talking about that in 2015, and people were like, oh, that's a bit okay. But yeah, I mean, that gives me a sense of, I'm an NFL fan on the show. Fast forward that to the last 6 and 12 months conversation around digital collectibles, way ahead of the curve. So it was really interesting, and that was just tapping into that fandom and fans just wanting to take everything. You had eye blacks on every fan. Fans just seemed to, it was almost like a convention type thing. You had to wear your jersey, whether that was a 20-year-old jersey that definitely didn't fit you anymore. You had to wear that because that was you showing your fandom at the game.
Yep. And then the other part of, everything the NFL UK team have done and in a broader Europe is also that player development, that player pathway and the academy. And so how was, from your team, from a digital point of view, how are you both supporting that and seeing that grow over your, for the time that you were there, to say, hey, there are players here. They could be going to the NFL. They could, we will see them on the field. Do the UK fans rally behind their players as much as Aussie fans rally behind the Jordan Malatas of the world?
Yeah, 100%. I think that was a really that was a strategy for a couple of years. It's like, right, homegrown players, let's get behind them. We could see that, and Efe Abada, who's been in the league 4 or 5 years now, we could see that he was selling jerseys and conversing fans. He walked like he didn't walk because he's a big dude, but he talked like us. He sounded like us. He was a guy who was brought up in London. He played Britball. So people could relate to him. And yeah, fans 100% would react positively. He would talk about football. He would talk about having a Nando's, and things like that really just made him relevant in the market. And Jordan does an incredible job as well for Australia. So we knew that one of the ways we were going to become bigger was to promote homegrown talent, and the academy was a clear 10-year plan to try and let's create some hometown heroes that are going to come through the NFL. We're going to have footage of them at the age of 15, 16, throwing a ball, rushing the pass, or whatever it was, kind of taking them through, send them to the US and to college, and then one day hopefully see them on stage shaking the commissioner's hand and picking up a jersey. So that was always a long-term vision. But for me, coming in on the academy project, what was really exciting was, okay, we want to reach a whole new, younger, more diverse audience, be able to have 70 students studying the game full time and create them as almost micro influencers. That was always a strategy. Let's create a team of influencers that are this academy team. Let's give them content to put on their channels who have engaged followings. Let them teach us what they want to see on the channels, and use them front and center of what we want to do. I've always been fascinated in the way that kind of US college teams do their recruiting, in terms of, let's bring someone in. I remember reading a story about how Urban Meyer, when he was at Ohio State, would interview the social media person because he needs to be in control of that because that's how they sell the dream. So that was then really a really interesting angle to look into the recruitment side of things to make sure we were getting the best talent. So that was a really interesting short term, but also that sort of long term initiative from the NFL.
So I've got a question that's relatively self-serving because the position I'm in, and we've been working with the NFL for the last 2 seasons, and we're still, there's still a lot of the mountain to climb and a lot of growth and a little real positive. So my question would be to your younger self, what would be the advice that you could have given yourself? Because I'm going to take that advice on board for the Australian market because we're at the bottom of the hill. What should be things that we potentially should be focusing on, in Australia effectively?
I think the biggest thing that we did that I think found that was a real game changer for us was creating local ambassadors. So, obviously, when you're a former 2-time Super Bowl winner and New York Giant with the New York Giants, and Jason Bell, who played for a number of NFL teams, who are really, really good friends. They played together at the Giants. They both found themselves in the UK living here just through marriages and finding themselves here. They turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to us over the last 5 years because they are now the kind of faces of the NFL in the UK from a sort of new fan point of view. So I think having them live in the game, understand the game, and then be able to deliver that and understand a fan base internationally and be able to talk to them. They're 2 people that found the exact balance between appealing to that avid NFL fan because they had the clout of playing in the game, but they were cool. They were a bit, they were younger. They could appeal to that other fan base that were trying to come into the sport, and they were the best ambassadors that we could have. So I think for us, that was having those 2 are really important because, like you guys, America, you can't just go and find a player. An NFL team is not just down the road and we can get access to players. To get access to players when you're on the other side of the world is a real challenge. So be able to have that in market presence was really, really key for us, and I think potentially dialing that up a little bit more would be we could have done.
Terrific. Taken on board, and there's probably things in the roadmap that we are talking about that align with projects like that. I wanted to move from the NFL and appreciate you helping me with what we're going to do in the NFL. And like I said, we do catch up. Now you're at Nottingham Forest and in the Premier League. What's it like? First of all, what was that change like going from, again, a league and a big league at that at the NFL, but, a challenger brand in market to going to clubland and, it's a whole paradigm shift. There's different restrictions, so what was the, I guess, your first couple of days and, that adjustment period like from what you could do in the NFL and then what you can do and what are the opportunities at Nottingham?
Yeah, very, very different, which is great because it's a whole new challenge. When I was at the NFL, I was always sort of attracted to working for a club. The idea of being part of a team, quite literally, and watching them every week, winning and losing with them, being together. So that was a real attractive thing for me. I started, my first day was our first week back in the Premier League for 23 years. So I kind of really got thrown into that, which was great, right at the deep end. It was challenging for a team like Nottingham Forest, who have not been in the Premier League for such a long time, to try and keep up with what is expected of Premier League and the standards that are reached. So quickly learning what was the expectation and then trying to put that in place for a team that are still recovering from a promotion. To be honest with you, there's only, I think it was about 6 to 8 weeks after winning the playoff final to then starting a Premier League campaign. So the biggest difference for me was, I've come from the NFL. It's a very short season, when you look at the UK games, it's a kind of, I suppose, like a 3-4 week season, I suppose, mini season inside the longer season. this is an August 1st and May 27th season, and you play every single week. So that was a different shift for me. It's like, right, okay, let's get through this game, and then we go again next week. We keep going again. Things might not be perfect this week, but let's get them better for next week. Whereas the NFL is like, right, that needs to be absolutely bang on because we've got a whole year to plan that. We've got 5-6 days to turn this around, or something's dropped. We need to do something on tomorrow around the game. Okay, let's make that work. So that sort of nature of being able to turn things around very, very quickly was not something I wasn't used to at the NFL, but it was a shift in terms of always being on that treadmill.
So explain your role? What's your role at Nottingham Forest, and what does your remit sort of give us some idea of what the team looks like? Because again, like I said, you're back in the Premier League, so you're not in a established. Was there a bit of a reset, a stepping up in going to the Premier League? So what does it look like in for the team?
Yeah, of course. So I marketing director to run the marketing team. It's so funny when I speak to all my colleagues about marketing in football clubs and other sports teams. It's different wherever you go, and you have different reporting lines wherever you go. So I report into comms and commercial. My team basically are across social content, digital, brand, fan experience, the events, the stadium, like what that experience looks like, and then obviously just campaigns, promotions, what we're doing to push certain things throughout the season. So right now we're right in the middle of season card renewal. So how are we drumming up that campaign, putting that across all channels, and making that super targeted, right? Because I think last year, or in the past, it's been right. Let's just spray this everywhere. Let's just get this out on Twitter, and let's get this out in our match day presentation. It's like we need to remember not every single person across everything is a season ticket holder. In fact, only a small percentage are. We're just trying to renew them. So let's just talk to those people. So trying to get that idea of very targeted comms into the team has been a whole new way of working, just because I haven't had the team there. So the way it looks is I have one marketing manager and one digital marketing manager that's come in the last three months that sit me directly in marketing. We then have 3 people in a video team, 3 graphics, and then we have 2 on social, and then we have people in comms that kind of sit in that comms thing. But I suppose that kind of creates a content marketing media team, and then I work closely, probably me the most, on close to the partnership side that kind of rolls up into commercial, that then feeds into retail and ticketing as revenue streams. So it's a quick growing team. When I joined, I think there was probably half the amount of people there were now in the team. So it's been a really fast growing to keep up with the Premier League demands and the ambition of our owners to grow the team to be a Premier League club on and off the pitch.
And I wanted to talk to you as part of the backwards and forwards when setting this up. You were talking about digital transformation and sort of looking at that, and that can have different meanings for different people. So, so what does digital transformation mean to you, and what does that project look like, that you're working on now?
Yeah, and look, I know when I talk about digital transformation, you're like, it's 2023. Why are you talking about digital transformation still? And that's literally because I think you sometimes forget that clubs that have been in in the championship that don't have the resources, they've been just getting through the season and focusing on getting back into the Premier League. So when I came in, it was very clear that the digital hasn't been prioritized, and understandably so, because it hasn't been a key focus for the club. So that was an area that, obviously, coming from the NFL, which are very advanced in this space, it was something that I feel like I could change a lot. And internally, we're calling it a digital acceleration plan. I think digital transformation is, essentially, it's how does the club now prioritize digital across everything, and we become digital first, data driven, fan centric, revenue focused, all of those things that everyone in the industry talks about all the time. It's just about turning turning that tap on essentially, and ensuring that the whole business is set up across retail, across ticketing, across all of our different revenue streams. But also that's the way we're going to reach fans. That's the way we're going to grow. Understanding our audience more, the way we're going to do that is through using the data smartly. So what are we doing in that space? So it's been a process. I've brought in guy on the digital side who's got some background in CRM and just kind of general digital and growing that part of the business. So we've now got someone which sounds crazy, we've now got someone fully focused looking at digital all year round, which is an important step for the club and just shows the sort of direction that we want to go and the story that we're trying to tell at Nottingham Forest.
Completely, and even you joked about it before about the structures and reporting lines, but the fact that you have got that reporting line to commercial is critical, because you have to turn that piece to say we are going to produce digital. We don't just want the likes and the empty views. We want to be able to figure out how we are engaging those fans and commercializing it, and sort of doing that first. So, I think you're right. A lot of people have been saying digital transformation. We're all still going through a process in a way to say, hey, how can we level up? That's all digital transformation is. But can imagine, as the players on the pitch are all stepping up, then everyone else from a business side also has to step up as you're moving up a league. Is there any particular analytics or metrics that you're just trying to focus on as a team that you're pointing to your board, or maybe Ted Lasso style tapping the believe sign saying this is what we're chasing?
I think for us, we're building out our whole kind of reporting structure at the moment. I'm kind of reporting up mainly growth. We've seen huge amounts of growth this year across social and database. We're about 150% up from August 1st across database and social. And as much as I would love to say that's all me, that is the power of the Premier League. That is the power of millions of eyeballs all over the world suddenly watching your brand week in, week out, and growing that. It's about how we maximize that, how we utilize that, and then how we use that data and how we use that audience to continue growing and essentially eventually pull them down the funnel into a revenue stream. So for us at the moment, it's all about top of the funnel. First season back in the Premier League, let's grow that funnel as much as we can. But as we start to go down, like in the more the big one that we always look at is revenue. So how much revenue are we driving through marketing, and even not new revenue streams, but new revenue streams to the club, like content monetization across YouTube and across Facebook, turning that on and then starting to actually look at the videos and the content we're producing to optimize towards that. So rather than just going, right, let's look at the view count that Facebook are giving us. Let's look at 5-second views. Let's look at the retention rate. Let's try and create videos that are going to make people watch for much longer. So they hit that all important ad break, and then we can start kind of taking some money from it. So that's how we're more working, I think, strategically, especially across our content, to ensure that content is optimized for long form and to hit that first ad break. But really, it's all about that top of the funnel. Let's get growth mainly through engagement. We are the most engaged club per follower in the Premier League this season, and we're very proud to say that. We know we have a massively engaged following. It's about just how do we keep growing that.
Terrific. I think you did answer my next question was, what is that focus around? And, engagement is one where it is the start of the top of the funnel and bring them down. So what are the bigger goals? Like, again, looking forward in 12 months' time, where do you hope to be in 12 months' time as your team skills up, your fans come aboard for the journey? Where do you hope to be in 12 months?
Yeah, so in 12 months, we spent this year kind of, as I said, building and then almost getting our stack right and our tools right to then really sort of attack from next season, and having everything in place that we want to be. So we use Blinkfire daily as a kind of social tool. And what I think that what it does really nicely is be able to rank you as a Premier League club against all the other Premier League clubs against whatever metrics. Climbing that to be, a mid-table club across the key metrics of followers, social engagement, social views is a North Star for us, especially in the following front where we are behind because we haven't had that Premier League exposure for such a long time. And I think more broadly than just social, we want to create an app which is, and the app as it is, but advance that to be way more sticky and really lean into gamification. We've toyed around whether the app should be, right, should your app be that ticket holders go into the game, it's got everything that you need to do in there. Yeah, yes, it should, but let's go a bit broader than that. The app is global. Let's make it your path to be a Nottingham Forest fan no matter where you download it. So we want to start bringing in simple gamification, collectibles inside the app. Some teams do a great job already, and we take inspiration from clubs and different sports teams from across sport to look at what they're doing and like I said, take inspiration and start building that out. So the app is another focus for us, and the other one, which we don't currently have, is a really committed, and it all kind of ties into the same thing. It's around a loyalty program joint with a membership and a joint memberships program. So getting fans in, digital members, they have a loyalty service that, the more they pay into the club, the more that they then get back. That then goes back into the club. So rewarding people for their loyalty and making people identify it being a Nottingham Forest fan more than just buying a jersey. What more can we give them to identify as a Nottingham Forest fan digitally and physically when they come to the game?
Yeah, it's a digital face paint, I like to call it. You want them to give them that stuff so they can, show their colours, show their fans. So we'll be following, with interest. I really do appreciate you taking the time. It's early morning for you in London. Jamie, I want the closing five. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I do. It was my dad, I think I was about 7, and he took me to Chelsea Newcastle at Stamford Bridge. It was 1-1, and I believe that Gianluca Vialli scored for Chelsea. Very, very fond memory of my first football game.
Terrific. And you would have been to a fair few different sports events over your career. Do you have a favourite food memory or a go-to food when you go to a sports event?
I think I just because at Forest now, there's a guy that does these things called pizza dogs, and essentially it's pizza dough with a hot dog in the middle and all the toppings you want. So there's for those of you who, and it sounds like you do, Sean, like the different sport the and different food that sports can offer. There's I don't know if you've seen the Instagram channel Footy Scran. On there's just all the weird and wonderful food that you can find across different football clubs across the UK and across the world. So, but for now, it's the pizza dog at Nottingham Forest.
Oh, terrific! What's the first app you open in the morning?
Twitter.
You said you could hear your Twitter. Like, is it? What's your take on Twitter?
It's because it's usually. I mean, it's usually like not first thing in the morning. It's usually in the middle of the night when I wake up. I've got a young girl. I need 18 months. So I usually end up hearing her stirring and lean over. Right, I'll just see what's going on in the world. And because obviously my time at the NFL, following a lot of US sports. That's usually going on at 3-4 in the morning. So my feed is usually pretty active at that time with what's going on over in the US. But I usually go on it, and there's some good takes on there, and I like following industry pieces on there. But usually I find my timeline's just filled with usually some negative news or something that I don't really want to read. So I usually end up regretting it and putting it down.
Yeah. Is there someone that you either follow, or maybe an author or a colleague that you potentially work with that the podcast listeners should follow, and why?
There's a guy called Jack Appleby on Twitter. He's really active on LinkedIn as well. He does a newsletter called Future Social. I think I've never personally spoken to him or anything like that, but he's really insightful guy. He shares a lot of great stuff, has a lot of good takes on things. not all of them I agree with, which creates great debates in comments and
Yep.
threads, and does sort of case studies in Twitter threads. So I think he's been, for me, probably the last 24 months, been a really, really interesting person to follow, to see what he's saying around the industry.
Definitely, yeah. I've been following Jack for a long while, and his email newsletter is a really good one, and he's a really good follow. Lastly, and I ask this, from a personal point of view, and then you can put your Nottingham Forest hat on. What social media platform is your MVP?
I would say personally, and for Nottingham Forest at the moment, it sounds really obvious, but it is. Maybe not at the right time. Actually, is TikTok. Obviously, with a lot of press around it at the moment, which is super interesting. But I think personally, it's just the endless scrolling that you get yourself into, which usually gets me into trouble. But keep that. The way that it keeps you on the platform is unbelievable. And then I would just say, from our point of view, it's the thing that we've seen the most amount of growth in. We've seen every time we post on TikTok, our followers just up and up and up and up. And we've got some great personalities in our team. We've had a lot of new signings. We've had 25 new signings this season, and it's a good way of showing off some of those personalities. And it's also allowed us to tap into a lot of different markets as well. We've signed players from Costa Rica, from Brazil, from all over the world, especially in South America. And actually, we're seeing a lot of that audience come to us through social, but through TikTok, which has massively upped our following as well. So I would say, although I would say most amount of our time is spent talking about Instagram, it should be more on TikTok, because it's now our biggest channel, and continue to outgrow everything.
Yeah, it has been a while since we've had a platform sort of lift the velvet rope and let the growth keep going. Like all the meta platforms and Twitter have all sort of put the handbrake on. So everyone now says, "Oh, TikTok is growing." So it's like, well, when is it going to stop growing? But when it's growing, you push really hard, right? And so that's completely understandable.
If we've learned anything in social, right? If we've learned anything in social, is when the platforms allow you to grow, take advantage of that, because that tap's going to stop one day. So let's just jump on it. Although we've seen some incredible growth on Instagram this year, again driven through international following. Brazil is unbelievable market for Instagram. We signed 2 Brazilians, and that's absolutely exploded on there. It's been really, really interesting to see the global growth of our channel to the Premier League eyeballs as well.
What's your take on all of these changes around generative AI, ChatGPT? Is it something that you're looking at to improve your content workflow, how your team can leverage the technology to quicken, get more out of less, from a resourcing point of view? Is it something that you're playing around with and interested to explore more?
100% interested. I'm reading a lot about it. It's hard not to. When you follow people around the industry and on Twitter and LinkedIn. So I'm really interested about it. We're not in a place to start implementing AI. We're trying to get our heads around some pretty simple digital movements. We're still talking about apps and email segmentation before we start moving into AI, and we want to try and get to a point where we know we can quite quickly. I think AI is in a whole different world, but look, it's super interesting. It's super scary about, what is the real potential of it. I've seen stuff recently about AI, like text to video bits, where you put a text in, it creates videos, like unbelievable stuff. I think the first time we'll probably use it is from an efficiency point of view. I think that will be really, really interesting to see how that helped workflows and things like that. But right now, I would say, personally, as a professional in the digital space, keeping my eyes on it, but probably not right now looking at how we can implement it at the club. But I'm fascinated to see how other clubs start to use it. It's going to be a really interesting space to watch over the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think productivity wise, it's a bit like going from the typewriter to the word processor, those kind of things. And then I think from a workflow point of view, it's really good. So like one of the things that we're doing is like we'll record this video, I can then throw it to a tool that does an automatic transcription, and then I could just ask, "Oh, can I please have the highlight? Like, what were the key points of the interview? Oh, what were Jamie's best quotes? Oh, and what were the video timings of them?" And so, just so you're not handing someone a 60-minute video, you can say, "Oh, here's the quotes from the player interview," and so you've just at least fast tracked that. You're not asking, like there is tech now that is video editors with the AI in that it will start suggesting stuff. But even if starting to use those tools to go, how can I produce more content quickly? You've still got your content creators shaping the final results, but some of those laborious tasks, I think, will be taken off our hands. So you will be able to produce, 5 reels in an hour instead of 2 because you're not scanning all the video and loading it all up. So that's where I think the initial stuff is. It's not like implementing an AI project, which I think we will do as well, like loading in all the Nottingham Forest history and have someone say, tell me a stat, or who else has my birthday date, and it just comes back. That stuff's exciting, but that takes time to figure out the models and how to load them.
I think as well that where that's going to come from, I 100% agree with you on the efficiency one. That's definitely going to be the key one. But I think, like NFTs, like everything before it, I feel like AI is going to become one of those buzzwords in a meeting room with corporate partners. And you're going to bring it up and you're going to say, well, what we can do is AI-powered initiative that, and I think that's where you'll start seeing some interesting things where brands and clubs and rights holders start coming together to create that. So I think as long as it doesn't go down the road of, right, let's make everything AI powered when actually it's not really AI powered. You're just saying that to put another zero on the end of the paycheck. I think that, it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves in that space as well.
Definitely. Where's the best place for people to reach out to you, Jamie, on the internet to say, hey, I listened to the podcast and I really enjoyed it?
LinkedIn. It's just you'll find me just Jamie King on LinkedIn. That'll be the best place. I'm on Twitter as well, Jamie King 89, and I'm usually I speak to people on DMs there, but I'm not really much of a tweeter these days. I'm more of a hiding the replies and the odd DM and that guy. So I wouldn't say I'm a good follow. As a marketing person, I'm not marketing myself very well, but I wouldn't say I'm a good follower because I don't really post. But I like to engage people on DMs and then, of course, on LinkedIn as well.
Terrific, Jamie. Really do appreciate catching up. Hopefully I'll be in your part of the world, or maybe Nottingham Forest come down for a game down at Melbourne sometime and we'll catch up. But really do appreciate catching up and talk to you soon.
Cheers, Sean. Appreciate it. Great chatting to you.
Why not book a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan? Go to sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Jamie King. You can find him, as he said, lurking on Twitter at JamieKing89. Please drop a comment on this post for this episode on my post in LinkedIn to say thanks and connect with Jamie. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn. All the notes and all the links will be in the show notes. sportsgeekhq.com/328. Before I wrap up this episode, I wanted to talk about something that we've been working on for many, many years, and I think most likely many of you have, is that sports fan funnel and how digital delivers. It's very much something that Jamie is working on now with Nottingham Forest. It's definitely something that we're working, in the discussion around talking about the NFL and developing new fans. Digital is the place that delivers, and we normally work in sort of two sides of this funnel. At the wide part of the funnel, it's about building audience, and that's how we were working in the early days of social media. How do we get more fans? How do we get more fans to these particular platforms? So we're very much in that reach mindset, reach as many people as possible. And then once you start getting those reach numbers to where you want them to be and you started reaching all of your fans, reach is not enough. You have to start engaging and make that deeper connection with your fans. So reach is great. Get out there, get your name out there, get your team's name out there, get your account on the different platforms out there. But the real focus needs to be, how do you get engagement? How do you get someone to like something? How do you get someone to comment? How do you get someone to mention your account? How do you get someone to retweet, repost, whatever it might be in the different platforms, your content? Because that engaged audience is the starting point of deepening those ties with the fans. And so reach is that start point, engage is that second point of that build audience phase. And then we get to the what I like to term the money line. How do we get them to transact? How do we get them to convert? And conversion can be many things for different people. For some, it might be a follow. It might be getting them to follow the account. In others, it might be getting them to sign up, for a competition, or getting them to sign up for a newsletter to actually capture that data, especially getting it from the social media platform, getting the data yourself, getting that third-party data. Is it email? Is it phone number? That's a really big piece. That's a really big piece of that conversion. Then the other conversion could be actual cold, hard cash, getting them to buy something, getting them to buy a ticket, getting them to buy merchandise and the like. And that's why it's the money line. Data is money, and obviously money is money. And so that conversion phase and that conversion part of the funnel is really what we do in sports digital to build revenue. And then the last phase is the one that's sort of more in the ticketing and the season ticket sort of space is renewing. How do we make sure we keep selling to our fans, and how do we make sure that those fans stay on board? Because we've fought pretty hard to get that initial conversion. You don't want to, you really want to reduce churn. So you want to make sure that how you're retaining and renewing those fans is super important. And, you can't just focus on securing that first transaction. So I'll put a link to our Where Digital Delivers slide. It's made an appearance in many of my keynotes over the years, and it still applies today. Those 4 phases of digital and digital fan development, and how that sports fan funnel works. It starts with reach, and you build audience phase, reach, engagement, then looking at conversion, and then looking at retaining and renewing those fans. So always happy to talk about your sports fan funnel. Where is it at? Where are the problems? Is there a leak? Is it working as efficiently as possible? Happy to chat to you about it. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com is where you can find me, or you can book in for a Pick My Brain session. Just go to sportsgeekhq.com and follow the links. Lastly, before I wrap up this episode, have you registered for SEAT in Salt Lake City yet? It's going to be this July 14 and 15 in Salt Lake City in Utah. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/seat to find out more. And please listen to my chat with Josh Barney. That was episode 325 to find out more about what I think about SEAT in the past and what I'm looking forward to it in the future. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Don't miss out on the latest news and updates from the sports industry. Sign up for the Sports Geek News email newsletter today and stay informed on the latest trends, insights, and analysis from the world of sports. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call. For more resources, go to sportsgeekhq.com.